Hey all, here at OS Reviews. You're watching our throwback review of the Dell Venue 8 Pro Windows tablet here in 2019. This was a tablet released in 2015, and the base configuration model here, also known as the 3000 series, sold for just $99, making it really affordable. And this was back when tablets were still all the craze, and Windows tablets in particular were starting to bloom. So the years since haven't been super kind to tablets in particular, and development has kind of halted as smartphone screens have gotten larger and larger. However, it does mean that the price point of these tablets have dropped significantly. This device in particular can now be found on Amazon or eBay for as low as $30 in refurbished condition. So let's start with the design of the tablet. Again, we have a 8-inch display, which is HD quality. So it's going to be around 720p as opposed to, say, Full HD or Quad HD, so that's one slight compromise, but the screen gets very bright and also is IPS, which means it has pretty good viewing angles, and it's actually one of the better displays for an entry-level Windows tablet. The front also houses a webcam that you can use for Skype and video conferencing, along with an ambient light sensor which can dim and brighten the display automatically. On the right-hand spine, you'll find access to a micro SD card slot to expand the 32 gigs of built-in storage. There's also a very clicky and responsive volume rocker, and there's a key that you can tap on to switch back and forth between the Windows home screen and the Metro UI with the Tiles interface. There's also a standard micro USB port for charging that supports OTG, allowing you to connect adapters if you want to plug in a thumb drive or connect it by HDMI to a monitor. Now, on the very top of the tablet, you find access to a power key and also a 3.5mm headphone jack, and on the other side, you have access to a single loudspeaker. Now, the loudspeaker itself actually has very good quality, as we'll do a quick demo later on in this video, but unfortunately, it's not a stereo speaker. The rear of the tablet is made out of a soft touch rubber material that definitely makes it feel more premium than the price would suggest, even back in the day, for only $100. It has a great heft, it doesn't creak or cringe, and an entire tablet is easy to hold and grip as a result. Overall, it's a simple, clean, and modern design that has held up pretty well over the past 4 years, in my opinion. Diving into the software experience, as aforementioned, it comes with a full version of Windows, that is Windows 8/8.1, out of the box. You can upgrade it to Windows 10 for free if you want to, but I personally found that Windows 8 runs a little bit more smoothly on lower-end hardware like this, which has just 1GB of RAM, which is why I've kept the original OS. Windows 8, in my opinion, also lends itself better for tablets and touch-sensitive devices because it has lots of support for gestures and scrolling that some have been reduced on Windows 10 and brought back more of the traditional Windows layout for icons due to popular demand of users on laptops and desktops. So that's up to personal preference. What I will say though is memory is quite limited. Because of the full Windows OS, you're left with just under 10 gigabytes of storage from the original 32 gigs. So about 20 gigabytes are taken up by the OS. In terms of specifications, it is running on a quad-core Intel Bay Trail processor, Intel Atom, that's clocked at 1.33 gigahertz. And overall, it still is surprisingly zippy for basic navigation and for interacting with the UI. Part of that is due to the fact that Windows 8 is so well optimized, even on low-end hardware like this. The Intel Atom CPU is extremely energy efficient, and even today, this can get you well over 8.5 hours of screen on time before you need to recharge it again. So it does endure you through the entire day, if not 2 days, before you need to plug it back in, despite having seemingly very low-end specs. The touchscreen of the Venue 8 Pro is also quite responsive, which is definitely a good thing because if you're using it in the legacy mode and using your fingers, some of the keys and icons as you're navigating through file structures can still be a little hard to press and tap on just because it's still not entirely optimized for touch, I'd say, compared to, say, Android or iOS. But with that being said, because the screen itself is so responsive, even if you have larger fingers, I found that for the most part, it registers your touch without too many problems, as you can see there. So it's surprisingly sensitive, responsive, and easy to use. Because the tablet can run on any standard full edition of Windows applications, you can install any web browser you want. I've downloaded the full version of Chrome here, which is working really well. It's a very powerful browser, and performance is actually, again, surprisingly responsive on such a entry-level processor. So it's, again, a very optimized experience. Something to note though is because RAM is really low, it's only 1 gigabyte. If you open up too many tabs, especially with complex websites like the New York Times, eBay, it will start to close out of the previous tabs that you aren't currently looking at. But if you have just a few simple websites, and again, if you have less than 3 or 4 tabs, typically it still is held in the RAM without too many issues. Takeaway is the quality is, again, much better than expected. Even though it's a single speaker, it actually is not as tinny as you think for such a small device. It packs a good amount of volume if you crank up the sound, and it doesn't really distort even at the higher volume. So definitely good enough for watching back some quick YouTube videos, and you can always use the standard headphone jack, or you can use built-in Bluetooth to access some wireless headphones when you're on the go. Back in the Tile interface, we can launch into versions of applications which are more optimized for touch and for kind of a tablet-like experience, like this Edge browser here, which renders things even a little bit faster. In general, Microsoft Edge does seem to perform ever so slightly faster than Chrome if you have lots of tabs open, just because it tends to be even better optimized for low-end devices. Overall, it's still a very smooth and fluid experience, and we can simply swipe from the edges or the bezels of the tablet to go back and forth between all the currently open applications that we have on our device. We can also slide open a second app here for split screen multitasking, and we can even see all the currently open applications we have from an additional bar. So overall, it's still a very sleek interface that's fairly well designed from Microsoft's part. Now, if we take a quick look at the camera experience, now as aforementioned, the rear camera is 5 megapixels. It's nothing to really write home about, but overall, you can still snap the occasional image if you need it to be there, and it works all right. It's a very simple interface. We can capture panoramas if we want to. We can swipe up to take a look at some additional settings, exposure, and change to the front-facing camera. And again, everything is just passable, average quality, but again, if you need it, it's there in a pinch. So you can still get a pretty nice and focused shot for only 5 megapixels. Again, definitely good enough for the purposes of scanning in text, as well as keeping quick notes and things when you don't have a better quality camera with you. Now, areas though where the overall experience starts to fall apart a little bit would be in the area of finding new applications that you may want to run. So if I kind of search the Microsoft Store, that's where, again, the catalog of applications, again, the store, which relates to more mobile-oriented applications, is definitely not as wide as what you'll find on Android and iOS, especially if you are a gamer. If you're trying to find the most popular titles or equivalents of applications that you may be more used to on Android or iPhones, it's a lot harder to find their equivalent on the Microsoft Store in terms of that optimized mobile-like view. So that's more or less it as far as our revisited review of the Dell Venue 8 Pro here in 2019. Surprisingly, 4 years later, the tablet has held up really well in terms of performance. In fact, it doesn't feel too much slower from when it was new 4 years back. Things still load back really quickly, Wi-Fi reception is still quick, and as long as you are doing some very modest web browsing, you're not opening up more than, say, 5 or 6 tabs at a time, it still delivers relatively smooth performance. You can watch back videos, it's comfortable, has great audio quality, a pretty good display even though it's not the sharpest technical resolution, and overall performance in terms of battery life are all quite good. If anything, this serves as a reminder of how quickly technology evolves and how quickly technology degrades in terms of value. Something like this, back in 2012, 2013, would have sold for hundreds of dollars, but now we can pick it up for just, the cost of a meal or two, and it actually still runs quite well. So if you're looking for an alternative to a regular Android tablet or an iPad, this might be still an interesting option to consider. If you're looking for a portable tablet that has a 8-inch display, so smaller than a full 10-inch device, easier to tuck around and to still access things like reading, checking the news, weather, your emails, and doing some light productivity and media streaming, it's still an interesting option to check out. In fact, I'd say the value has degraded faster than a comparable tablet running on Android from the same age of 2015, as long as you're willing to make do with a relatively scarce amount of mobile-oriented applications. So you can check out more details if interested in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been our revisited look at the surprisingly affordable Dell Venue 8 Pro, once one of the most popular 8-inch Windows tablets, which can now be found for under $50. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews.